Your average gym rat is absolutely obsessed with his physique, and yet he doesn't go heavy. In fact, when he's with his loser friends, if he goes to failure by accident, he laughs it off. He treats it as something that wasn't to be desired. Like it's embarrassing that he couldn't have got the weight for more reps. Then you have Anatoly. Anatoly has an immaculate physique. He steps in, he shows this gym rat who not only is not going to failure, but is doing the wrong form. He shows him how to actually do this. He shows him how to push to failure. He shows him how to one day become like him. When I first started deadlifting, I had the most atrocious form. I would literally shrug it up. I'd try and curl it. No one had really told me how to deadlift. I'd watch videos, I didn't really understand it. Probably for so long, even when I was, very near in deadlifting like 100 pretty much every single time. I was doing this, and yet the form was atrocious. My spine bent. Trying to curl it, like what on earth was I doing? I didn't have anyone there to show me what to do. And that was my first mistake. And what came next were millions of mistakes. Mistakes that would make my growth as slow as a turtle. I was literally being outpaced by the turtle just because I didn't have someone telling me what to do and what works. So here's a quick actionable step. Sit straight up, close your eyes, and just visualize yourselves. Visualize yourself following the right steps in the workout routine. Imagine feeling those muscles work. Imagine feeling them pump up, feeling them grow. And imagine actually pushing them to failure. Not failure where it starts hurting or burning, but actually going beyond that. That visualization, you want to keep that close because you need to remember what that feels like. And until you actually find that in the gym, then this visualization means nothing. It's just a promise of what you are supposed to expect. As soon as you experience it, boom, you know what to expect. You can visualize before every single set going to failure. And every single set feels different depending on the exercise. Leg extensions won't be the same as lateral raises. They'll both be very hard, but in their own different ways and with their own different curves. Now, nutrition is super, super important. Everyone knows this. You need to be getting enough protein. But what they don't tell you is most people are getting too much protein. It's not you have more and more and more and more and you get more gains. That's just not how it works. There's an amount you need to meet, and you meet it quite easily, to be honest, when you're trying to take protein seriously. If you're tracking your calories, you'll definitely get enough protein. This whole, 1 gram per pound of body weight is too much. You only need about 1 per, lean bit of tissue. That's the thing. Really think about it for a second. If you see this as the thing that goes towards making muscle, it doesn't really take much to repair. And let's say we're going from 200 to 20. That's a 20 gram increase daily. Let's say we're going over. Do you really think that you're going to be getting 20 grams of muscle every single day? In a month, that's going to be 600 grams. Would you think you go to 240 and then you get 1.5 kilo? There is a very, very small ceiling, and when you go beyond it, you're not doing anything. Of course, when I was younger, I didn't quite realize this, and I was spending a lot of my money on protein, whether that be protein powders or buying more or whatever. And truth is, now I try and minimize the protein. I want it to meet the baseline, but when I go over that, when I allocate more protein there, not only am I just messing up my calories, but in truth, I'm wasting money. Protein is the most expensive of the macros, and every time I go a gram above, I'm actually losing money. It's just going nowhere, and that's awful. And of course, the second thing is people just aren't having enough calories. They're trying to grow. They're being outpaced by the turtle because they're not eating. You don't have to eat big to get big, but you do have to eat a little bit bigger. Otherwise, you're not going to get bigger at all. The next thing I'm going to talk about is training smart. We can say focus on compounds, we can say do the correct form, but it's more than that. We first got to work on intensity. That is the first thing that matters. When intensity's there, which for most people it isn't, when I first started it wasn't, it's only something which I've maybe been doing properly for 7 months now. And think about that, I am so many years into this, and I managed to get gains without it just because of luck and persistence, which isn't good because I could be a lot further along than I am. Intensity. Next is your exercise selection. This isn't your split. Don't confuse it with something like that. I'm talking about the actual exercises you choose. Now, these exercises are going to be, you're not trying to make them redundant. So if we're doing a pull-up and a pull-down in the same session, it's the same movement. You see the issue there? We're not really like training anything different or in a different way or more challenging or anything like that. Like if we were doing a pull-down, maybe we want something with a different resistance curve, so it's more so biasing like a lengthened position instead of like a shortened. And mixing and matching and having proper exercise selection will just make sure that we're getting well-rounded growth and we're not just wasting sets on something which is the same thing. Of course, the next thing is actually the split. The split you do will have tiny differences because it doesn't matter that much. You can say your arms aren't going to grow on a push-pull legs, but then you can just, with the exercise selection, you can start your chest day by doing some bicep curls, like a set or two. It won't be very fatiguing, it won't be too difficult, and then you're prioritizing your arms. Like, it's not hard to add these sort of things in. In fact, I see people doing this all the time when they're not even supposed to be doing it, when they don't have issues, so there's no reason you can't do it. And of course, correct form. Correct form is probably the first thing you gotta do, but don't make the mistake I see a lot of people making. Think about maths in school. The way you do maths isn't by learning theory over and over and over and over and over, and then you start the questions. What do? You learn a bit of the theory, you do the questions, you get them right, you don't get them right, you look back at the theory, and you keep going until it's perfect. This means that you should be challenging yourself when you're learning your form. I mean, when you're starting, you're not going to get injured. Like, realistically, you're not going to get injured, especially if volume's quite low. And I'm not saying that use outrageous form, but the form is something that's going to continue to improve. If you sit there and wait for your form to be perfect, you will only limit your gains because you'll be waiting for something that doesn't happen. You'll be doing the practice questions instead of actually practicing with the practice questions. Another problem that makes the turtle outpace you is people focusing on the mind-muscle connection. This thing does not matter. I don't know where this came from, but it was some whole idea about mind-muscle connection mattering. And there is a slight chance that it can enhance growth, but not the way people think. Like, if you have to fill your lat by doing a single movement because you think it's going to add more growth, you're actually taking away because you could stabilize with that arm. Like, the benefit you get from feeling something is nowhere near being stable in a movement. And so, connected to that, people think they need to feel the muscle. And typically how you can feel a muscle really, really well is by doing a light load. Because at like maximum loads, it's kind of distributed everywhere and everything's going to feel sore, but you're not going to be able to like really concentrate on one muscle. And that's the problem. People are going to limit themselves. They're going to do a lot less than they should be because they're trying to focus on feeling their bicep. And when you focus on feeling your bicep, you are not growing it. And the last problem I see is people are getting outpaced by the turtle purely because they limit themselves. They think they're natural because they think that because they're natural, they're not going to get anywhere because all the guys on steroids are going to overlap them. And by doing that, the turtle overlaps them. They genuinely believe that they can't get anywhere. And because they put this limiting belief on themselves, they cannot grow. I used to think a similar thing. I used to think that the natural limit was so much lower than it is. And then I started watching some natural creators, and I'll admit, a few of them when I started watching, I thought were fake naturals. I didn't really trust what they were saying because it seemed too good to be true. I've been conditioned to this lie of not being able to improve, and in truth, I limited my potential by doing that. I actually looked at like the peak of what I could accomplish as something which was so much lower than it actually could be. And that was an awful place to be stuck in. And of course, don't give your hopes up. Don't think you can get like 23 arms naturally, because that's not going to happen. But don't limit yourself by the belief of, only being able to get to a certain place unless you're enhanced. It's just not true.